I hope we have a collaborative hour. Feel free to drop any questions or any comments in the chat. Joseph and I will be monitoring that chat, but hopefully we could learn something from each other today. Our topic for today is a very simple topic. We talk about expectations almost daily, but somehow, even though we talk about expectation, we don't seem to have learned to manage them all the time. And maybe some of you are experts at managing them. So if you have anything that has worked with, any ideas that has worked with you, any interventions that has worked with you in regards to teaching families, teaching couples about expectations and how to manage them, please feel free to share it. One disclosure, as you can see, I have an accent, and just the other day I was listening to myself in audio and the accent is even worse in audio, so bear with me in there. But this is one of the topics that I'm very passionate about. I see this very often in my work as a therapist with family members, with couples, sometimes with my own kids as well. So let's see if we can learn from each other today. And just to start, what are some of the expectations that you have for this presentation today? You can start putting some ideas in the chat. What do you expect from this presentation? We got no expectations then. Okay, that's fine. Oh, here they're coming. They are coming. Okay, I think I'm on a delayed action here. It will be an hour long and we'll focus on relationships. You're right, Trisha. It will be an hour long. Trisha, your expectation and my expectations are the same. They are matching. Tools to communicate effectively. Annie, yes, my expectations are the same. Tips and tricks in working with couples and families. Okay, hopefully to get some more skills to better help the couples, learning anything that might be helpful, realistic expectations for marriages, glean ideas in working with couples, expectation barriers via culture. Oh, I love that. Especially for my own self, since I'm also a foreigner, there are different expectations that come with different cultures. Actually, there are different expectations that come with different families in the same culture. So these are great. These are excellent. How to communicate more effectively in intimate relationships, improvement of skills for communication within any relationships. That's great. That's wonderful. We're kind of aligning. But what if I told you none of those are my expectations for this particular workshop? How would you feel if you have come to say, well, I came to learn something and the learning doesn't happen? How would you feel? I would feel frustrated. I would feel like, gee, I just spent an hour for nothing. But think about those. What kind of waste of time? Absolutely. Yes, disappointment. We are going to talk a little bit about those feelings, because that's what happens when the expectations are not met. We tend to feel disappointed. We tend to feel bored sometimes. There are a lot of other feelings, but the thing is that you and me did not talk about the expectations. All of us have come here with something that we all expected, but none of us really had a meeting prior to this meeting to say, hey, what is this meeting going to be about? I hope you know where I'm getting. Unless we have these expectations communicated, shared, my expectations and your expectations, our personal expectations, might not be met. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to make those expectations, how to meet our expectations, how to fulfill our expectations. So let's start going. All right. What are the expectations? They are simply beliefs that we have, beliefs that basically we've got a picture in our head, and we think that whatever will happen next is going to be exactly like the picture that I have in my head. However, what I'm thinking about when I create this picture in my head, and if we take this example of our presentation today, I might have not checked with the presenter. I might have not taken in consideration that sometimes there might be technical difficulties. What if we did not even have a PowerPoint today? Some of you might say, gee, I really was expecting to get those slides. What if our technical difficulties do not allow us to actually have a PowerPoint? So really, when we talk about the expectations, most of the time we are focusing only on our own picture. And that picture did not take in consideration the other person, the situation, the environment, and things that are completely beyond our control. But when we don't take in consideration those items, we only look at our own picture, then our expectations are not met. So as simple as it is, sometimes we create our own disappointment. So today we're going to learn how to not create more disappointment for our own selves. Why are we talking about the expectations? When I have an expectation, that creates an aspiration. It creates my hopes. It creates my dreams. It creates whatever I'm really hoping for, a relationship, for a workshop, for a dinner, for a celebration. And based on those aspirations, based on those hopes that I have, I create certain behaviors. I behave in a certain way that impact the situation as well. So understanding what the expectations are and how do I create, or how do I deal with those, how do I manage those, hopefully we can learn how to improve the way that we manage those expectations and improve our relationships. How do we create expectations? Well, a big deal about, at least for me, how I see it, a big deal about how we create the expectations is the needs that we have, personal needs that we have, and all of us have needs. I know that sometimes we have a negative meaning to I'm a needy person, but the truth is that we are all needy persons. We all have certain needs that if they are not met, our expectations are not met. And if our expectations are not met, our satisfaction in any type of relationship, it can be a friendship, it can be a romantic relationship, it can be a parent-child relationship, but if my needs are not met, then my expectations are not met, then my happiness is not going to be in there. Personality is a big deal as well. Think about an extrovert and an introvert. And actually, I'm going to get a little bit personal in here. I think I'm an extroverted introvert. I like to be. I actually, at work, I'm more of an extrovert, but at home, I'm more of an introvert. I really, when I go home, I like to be at home, but also love to have a lot of outings with my friends. If I'm with my sister, she is way, way, way more of an extrovert than I am. So when I'm with her, the needs are quite different. Even when she comes to visit me, a lot of time we have to be out doing things. If I would be by myself at home, I'd probably watch a movie and be okay with that. But the difference in personalities create also different types of expectations. And think about in marriages and relationships. If you have an extrovert married to an introvert, that will create some differences in expectations. If one wants to spend a quiet evening at home while the other one wants to constantly, every Saturday, every Friday, do something, one might be a little bit tired of that. So expectations need to be understood where they are coming from and what needs do they actually meet for us. Values and family, how we grew up, creates really expectations for us. One of our participants talked about culture expectations. I'll tell you a funny story. When I came in the United States, I actually was translating the social interactions from my own country to this country, and it did not work. Small talk in my country is, what profession do you have? How much do you make? So those questions were common in my country. So I started the conversations with, what do you do for a living and how much you make? And I would get a lot of elbows from one of my friends who said, you do not ask those questions because expectations are different. What we consider okay in one culture or in one family is completely different from what we consider in other families. Sometimes you learn expectations from your friends and your coworkers, especially if you hear a friend, let's say you hear at work people saying, well, every Saturday we do an activity, we do an outing. And then immediately you might start thinking, thus, I need to do an outing with my family. So sometimes you see coworkers or you hear coworkers saying something about their families, and you create an expectation that your family or your relationship should be the same. And the best of all, media. We've got in media picture perfect families, picture perfect relationships, because people put their best. And we also compare ourselves with their best, and we say that that should be our expectation as well. In reality, your expectation should be something that works for you and your family, for you and your relationship, not what is something that somebody else actually holds as their expectation. Now, there are relationships that have, or there are expectations that are very common in several relationships, and there are some expectations that are very unique about different relationships. So let's look at some of them that are very common one. Friendship and love, trust, commitment, safety, security, communication and understanding, problem solving, need for progress, etc. What are some other things that I do not have in here, but you have said this should be also a common expectation in a relationship? Humor, compassion. I love that. I love that. As you can see, several financial health and well-being, excellent. These are great expectations, and because you have those kind of expectations, your behavior is going to go towards that. Sharing the French fries. That's wonderful. I love that. Okay, but you can see how I'm going to pick on that. Always a +1. That's great. That's loyalty. Absolutely wonderful. Wonderful expectations. As you can see, there are so many expectations, and we all create them based on the person that we are with and based on our own needs and personality and values. But think about the financial, somebody mentioned financial health. If you have that as an expectation, then your behaviors are going to go towards creating that financial health. So expectations are not just expectations. They are there as they are going to direct our, behaviors. Okay, why can't I not? Okay, all right. There are also expectations that are completely different, very unique for each couple. And another disclaimer, I'm taking a traditional approach to this particular webinar today. Basically, most of the pictures that you are seeing in here are a male and a female. I don't mean to be offending anybody else, but that was my tradition. That is just my traditional approach. So you can apply those concepts in any relationships, and you can apply those concepts also in other relationships that are not necessarily romantic relationships. Okay. Some other expectations that are very unique for different circumstances that couples are finding themselves. Who is going to, or how do we take care of our elderly parents? Do they stay at home? Do they move in with us? Do they go to a nursing facility? Who does the housework inside and who does the yard work outside? Some of these have to do with gender roles, but that's also an expectation. Those gender roles are not just created on a vacuum. They're also created based on our expectations as well. And as you discussed in our chat, when you don't have your expectations met, there are some Feelings that we don't like to have: disappointment, regret, boredom, frustration, lack of understanding, lack of intimacy as well, because if we are not feeling that our expectations are met, we don't feel close to each other. And the more significant the expectation is, the higher the disappointment. However, something to remember, usually when we get disappointed, we don't get disappointed with ourselves. We get disappointed with the other person because that person did not meet our needs. That person did not do what we wanted them to do. That person did not take care of us. So it's really, today we're going to focus a little bit on really taking care of, taking actually a more personal view on these expectations. As I look at the expectations, for me, there are just two types of them. One type is unexamined, unexpressed, which can bring a lot of resentment, a lot of hurt, and a lot of regret. And the other time is the examined ones and the expressed one. And what I mean by examine is I have to look at, are they realistic or not? Are they clearly communicated? And can we meet or can we fulfill those expectations? I might express my expectations, but they might not really be realistic ones. So simply by just saying, well, I expressed it, well, can my spouse do it? Can my partner do it? So just expressing it, it's not enough. I've got a little example in here where the couple has decided to buy a car and they take both a different approach. They're great approaches, but they have not really talked to each other. We're trying to save for the car, and the wife says, I'm only buying the necessities. But my husband continues to spend on expensive groceries, eating out, although he is cut on buying new clothes. So the wife's expectation is we can cut as much as we can, spend as little as possible so we can buy the car as soon as we can. While the husband is coming from, we don't compromise on healthy eating. Anything else is okay, but not healthy eating. Are they realistic? Absolutely. Both of them have realistic expectations. But have they turned this expectation to a shared one? Have they discussed it together? No, they're operating on different pages. So in order for us to manage those expectations, something to do, understand them. What is my expectation? Why do I have that expectation? What is the need behind that expectation? Examine it. Is it realistic? And yes, I might think, yes, it is realistic, but can my spouse do it? And then express it. And when you are going to express it and you are understanding the why behind it, then it is most likely that that expectation can be turned into a shared expectations. And sometimes when we turn the expectation to a shared expectation, prepare to also make some accommodations, because it is not okay for myself to expect that my husband does certain things when he's not capable of doing. So some accommodations need to happen for the expectation to be a shared one. It's also important that we understand what is the resentment about. Most of the time, the resentment has to do with fear of disappointment, embarrassment, fear to be vulnerable. And actually, it's that fear of being vulnerable that does not even allow us to express our expectations. But what happens if we do take that approach? It is okay. I feel safe to be vulnerable. I feel safe to express my expectations. So I've got a comment in here. Will we be able to see the slideshow after the presentation? Joseph can send those slides to you. We will make them available. And another comment, recognizing the expertise and knowledge in the relationship and acknowledging that expertise. Absolutely. That expertise is very important. And sometimes it is that expertise that actually creates certain expectations. So recognizing our strengths, our expertise, it's important in creating our own expectations and managing them. I worked with a husband sometimes ago who came to therapy for, I'm a needy person and I really need to learn how to have less needs. And when we took the approach that everybody has needs, we have to recognize those needs and work toward meeting and fulfilling those needs. when we had that breakthrough, the therapy went so much faster, so much easier. But a lot of times our ability to express our expectations, our inability to become vulnerable because we think that I'm a needy person, really gets in the way of making our expectations shared ones. So there is nothing wrong with having needs, although there are times that I'm a needy person because I have certain needs that I need to meet. So nothing wrong with that as well. Well, to manage expectation, not only you have to understand yourself and where they're coming from, but also you have to understand your spouse as well. Can my spouse do it? We've got a willingness and the capability issue. Let's say he might be willing or she might be willing, but can she do it? If you have an extrovert and an introvert, can that introvert have parties every single Saturday at home? Maybe not. That's where the negotiation comes. Maybe we can have one party a month, but really sometimes might be quite realistic for me. But if it's not doable for my spouse, might not be a good one. And a lot of times when we come to examine our expectations and thinking about, well, my spouse does not want to do it. How will the conversations be different when we assume good intent and we understand where our partner is coming from? So instead of really thinking about, she does not want to do this for me, she doesn't care, well, maybe she cannot do it. Maybe this is too much for her. Can we do something else that the two of us can be okay with? How do we create those shared expectations? At the end of the day, I actually have this saying, if you don't tell me, I don't know. Same for spouses for partners in every single relationship. If you don't tell me, I might find out what your needs are, but it's going to take me a long time. If you tell me, I can make sure that I meet those needs. So at the end of the day, each one of us is responsible for verbalizing our own needs. Don't expect that others are going to understand what your needs are. So if you want to make that expectation a shared one, it is our responsibility to communicate it clearly, and to discuss with our partner if that expectation can become a shared expectation. Take responsibility for our own needs to be met. So when the needs are not met, instead of really talking about my spouse, my partner did not do this, my partner did not meet my needs, what if we are going to talk about, oh, this need that I had was not met? What can I do to meet the need? So really what I'm talking about is where is the responsibility going to be placed at? If the responsibility is going to be placed on me, then I work harder to meet that expectation next time. If the responsibility is going to be placed on my spouse, on my partner, then it is always their fault to not meet my needs, to not take care of me. And the likelihood is that needs might not be met for a long time. So I build even more resentment because all I'm doing is just blaming somebody else for not taking good care of me. I've got a comment in here, male versus female expectations, communication styles. Absolutely. That needs to be discussed, because we all know females need different things in relationships and males need different things in relationship. Sometimes if I'm going to vent at somebody, what I do to manage that expectation is I start with, I need to vent, I need you to listen to me, and basically I will have to have the expectation what I'm going to do and what I expect the other person to do. That makes it very clear for the other person, because if I'm just saying to them, all I need for you to do is listen to me, then that's all they're doing. It's making it easier for them because they know how to behave in this relationship. If I'm going to say, I need some advice from you, then they know that it is okay to give me advice. So by front loading that in the very beginning of the conversation, what I'm doing and what I need you to do for me is, it makes it easier for both couples. A lot of times what I hear in the therapy rooms is the wife comes there or the female partner comes there and says, all I wanted is for you to listen and to tell me it is okay. And you jumped into solving the problem. And the males are saying, well, that's what I know to do. And I thought that's what you wanted me to do. That's one of the biggest differences that I've noticed in male and female relationships. So front loading that at first and say, what I need you to do is, you make it easy for the other person to understand you and to be actually, to be present there for you and to meet the needs. So your needs are met. Remember, although, as we are talking about, we are the ones who are responsible for our needs, regardless of communication needs or something else. Remember that the last conversation is not the last conversation. You're going to have another one. So even if your last conversation did not go so well, you can say to your spouse, to your partner, to your coworker, next time, what I'd like you to do, or what I'd like us to do is, so you can always correct that. You can always turn that situation to actually meet your expectations rather than anything else. Remember, though, that as we are talking about the expectations, your spouse, your husband, your wife, your partner is not going to be the only one who is going to meet your needs. As we have needs in relationships, you as a person are also responsible to meet some of your expectations. For example, since I took the extrovert and the introvert, let's say if I'm an introvert and my spouse would be an extrovert, there are so many needs that, let's say if I'm to be the homebody and I like to stay at home, but my partner would be an outgoing, he can also take those needs, take care of those needs by hanging out with friends. So I don't have to meet all of those needs. However, one thing to be aware of this, because our needs and expectations are different. If your spouse, partner, if your whoever you are in a relationship with does not meet your needs, does not mean that you can just go out, justify your behavior to meet every other need that is not met in your relationship. Even though I'm going to meet my needs through other people or through other activities, those discussions need to be with my spouse. An extreme example would be if my sexual needs are not met in a relationship or marriage, it's not okay for me to go and meet those needs outside with a different partner, because that might not be an okay thing with my current partner. So those things need to be shared for them to create that shared meaning and to create satisfaction in the relationship. Having a regular relationship checkup. How are we doing? This is when you actually can do some of that correction if you are off course. How did we handle the last situation? How did we handle that particular conversation with our in-laws? What will be our expectation next time? So having those relationship checks in are important. I'd love to bring some shared expectation examples because they are very common. I've seen them quite often, and actually some of them I've done them too. So think about the vacation when you have planned, you have made a full list of places to go and visit. I usually, when I go on vacation, I like to pack it. And my family members like to take it easy, like to sleep in, and I want to be out by 8 o'clock in the morning. We got things to go, we got things to visit. So there is a difference in expectation there. And if we don't make a plan, I found that if I don't make a plan in the evening about when are we getting up, when are we getting out of the door, then I'm going to have some resentment, and they're going to have resentment towards me because I'm waking everybody up. So I found that we create those shared expectations by discussing those. But here is one thing, one example. You've got a couple who goes on vacation. One of the spouses takes care of places that they're going to visit, and the other spouse or partner says, I worked so hard. All I'm going to do this week is just relax, read a book, and do nothing. This couple is not going to have a great day. because they have not made that expectation a shared expectation. I've done this actually for my family members, where I had a surprise party. And, and when the birthday person came at home, it was just, all I wanted to do is to just be at home. But I thought it was fun to just invite everyone, right? You've got 30 people at home. Surprise! When the other person just wanted a nice and quiet birthday party. So has that been shared? It was not shared, and it created some, okay, let's do this, but I left my co-workers at work at 5 o'clock. Well, some people might say, if expectations are too much to deal with, maybe it's too much work. Why don't I just have less expectations? No, that will not be the best course to take. It's good to learn about expectations. It's good to have that awareness. Why is that important? What research shows that people or couples who have higher expectations, they have actually better relationships. Why is that? Because they achieve the relationships they want. So the idea is, to be happier, you don't have to lower your expectations. To be happier, you have to turn your expectations into shared ones. The higher the expectations, the better the relationship is going to be. However, let's just think about this. The higher the expectation, but also realistic expectations, because you might have very high expectations and they can be actually detrimental for some marriages because you are not able to meet them. So the higher expectation and the more reasonable they are, the more satisfied the couples are. There is actually some research. I found that quite cool, actually. What they are talking about is, sometimes it's not really what happens in a relationship, but it's the expectations that we hold. So for couples who expected or had the expectation that their spouses will be in good mood when they went in the evening, regardless of what their interactions were, their expectation, them assuming good intent, help the relationship become better, help the couples perceive each other in a better mood. Spouses who expected their partners to understand them during a conversation, during a conflict resolution, also behaved more positively toward their partner. So having high expectations, it's great. Assuming good intent, it's great. The idea is how to maintain those expectations how to maintain them, how to manage, and how to make them shared ones. I'd like to draw your attention to two different words: met expectations and fulfilled expectations. Not the same words, although we use them interchangeably. But think a little bit about that. When you talk about meet expectation, that really has the idea of check mark. I met it. It's done. When you talk about a fulfilled expectation, that one has the satisfaction, that has the satisfaction component. So think about, what is in your language, in your vocabulary? Are you meeting expectations? Or are you fulfilling expectations? One way to think about this is, especially with your partners and spouses, you can meet expectations, which is great. Met expectations are wonderful. Nothing wrong with it as well, but think a little bit in a higher level. It's kind of the idea of, are you surviving or are you thriving in your marriage? There are a lot of couples who are kind of saying, okay, I'll just deal with that. I have accepted my fate, so to speak. Or you can survive or you can thrive. And in order for all of us to thrive, that means we've got to do something else. So if you can learn something today from this presentation, think about the difference between those two words. Are you meeting or are you fulfilling your expectations? Okay. Got a comment in here. A great example with vacation. We have family members in the Just Relax camp. I'm with you. And some who make by the minute laminated itineraries. I think we probably all do. Definitely a communication to have during planning. Absolutely. We're planning a vacation right now, and we're trying to involve the kids as well. What I found is that I get more cooperation from the kids when I say to them, let's all create an itinerary. At least we can find the places that we want to visit. So this way, when the last vacation we took, it was Monday, we're going to do this. Tuesday, we're going to do this. Wednesday, we're going to do this. It was actually decided before we all left on vacation. Everybody had the itinerary. And I'll tell you this, it was the best vacation ever. Nobody complained. Everybody had put their input. These were the places that we had decided we're going to go. And we had also times in there. We have also free time in case we get done with those items earlier, what we're going to do if we have some free time. But yes, that vacation one, I'm the one who plans everything, who packs it. And my other family members want to just take their day. If they can sleep until 10, 11, they will do it. And I'm thinking 8 o'clock, let's get out. So, but good things to be aware. All right. When we think about expectations, sometimes I hear those kind of, what we're going to discuss right now, I hear those mostly from younger couples. They believe that as soon as they get married, as soon as they find a partner, as soon as they are in a relationship, all of their troubles are going to go away. Nope, there is no such a relationship. Basically, sometimes they think that if they have a conflict in a relationship, their relationship is not that great. And they start coming to therapy, and that's okay. They're going to take care of their relationship, but we need to be aware of that there is no conflict-free relationship. There is not mistake-free or hurt-free relationship. Those things are going to happen. But what we can expect is that you or me and the partner, the spouse, can solve our conflict when conflict arises, can repair our mistakes, can take care of the hurt, can talk about the hurt, can talk about the issues that we have in productive ways. Marriages or relationships will not solve all of our problems. What we can expect though is to communicate, to understand, and to work towards solving most of our issues. I hear couples sometimes say, well, if we have another baby, then we can get along much better. Not really. If you have not taken care of your relationship issues, another baby is not going to take care of the relationship issues. So expect to work on the relationship before you actually bring another person to that relationship. Relationships will not take care of your past hurt. Or instead of saying if you, expect to take care of whatever issues you have brought to the relationship, so the relationship can be actually much more effective and much more rewarding. Your spouse also will not take care of all of your needs, and sorry guys, but not all of your needs are going to be met. There are also needs that you might probably think about, what are my most important needs? But not all of our expectations or our needs are going to be met in a relationship, and that is okay, as long as you decide what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. There are certain needs that you cannot negotiate into, or expectations that you cannot negotiate into. Can I just not have this met or fulfilled? Absolutely no. You need to decide what needs, what expectations I have to have met and fulfilled, what needs are a maybe, and what needs are probably I can go without those. But a lot of times, if you have an expectation, it's best to work toward fulfilling that expectation rather than kind of putting it into, maybe it's an expectation that I don't really have to have met. So something else to keep in mind, beautiful marriages do not happen. Couples actually need to work very hard at making their marriages not just work, but really thrive. And You can do this by understanding the why behind your needs. You can do this by understanding the why behind your partner's needs, by expressing those needs, and by being able to accommodate your needs and to compromise at some time. You can create a beautiful marriage when you take responsibility of your own work. You can take responsibility for meeting your own expectations. Again, your spouse, your partner is not responsible to meet all of your expectations. You need to work into understanding what your expectations are, verbalizing them, making sure that they are realistic, and making them shared expectations. And as we're talking about ourselves in marriages and relationships, you also need to understand and know your boundaries. Boundaries is an important concept to keep in mind when it comes to expectations, because there are so many times, so many relationships that expectations are not met because of boundaries, or a spouse does not have their expectations met or fulfilled because of having lack of boundaries, or not being assertive enough to express those expectations. So remember that you are responsible to have your own expectations met. Well, and when our expectations are not met, that's fine. Acknowledge it. The more you acknowledge it, the more you work next time to actually meet and fulfill that expectation. If you are not going to acknowledge it, it's going to be kind of lowering your expectations, because lots of expectations are going to come one after the other. And if they are not going to be met, or if your expectations are not going to be fulfilled, then very easily they can go to, it's not important, it's not important, it's not important. And pretty soon, you will not have many important expectations. So it's very important to acknowledge it didn't get fulfilled, it didn't get met, but why? What could I do differently? Give yourself and the spouse the benefit of the doubt, especially your partner or your spouse. Your partner or your spouse is not out there to get you. Your partner or your spouse is not out there not doing things that you want just to get you upset. Might be some cases, but for the most part, give your partner the benefit of the doubt, because they are trying. Maybe they don't know how to read you. Maybe they don't know what the expectation is. Again, if you don't tell me, I don't know. But if you do tell me, I can work harder to meet that expectation. And give yourself grace. Mistakes happen. Give yourself grace. When you are not the one to meet that expectation for your spouse, but also give yourself grace when your expectations are not met, and be patient with you and your partner. There is always a next time. So acknowledge those disappointments as an opportunity. Why didn't we have those expectations met? What can we do the next time? Keep it in context. Don't overinflate the event. This is very easy to do because when an expectation is not met, then we talk about the dirty laundry and the dirty socks and the dirty dishes and everything that we can think of that has not been done in the past week or past year or past 30 years of marriage. So keep it in context. It's just this expectation for this situation for this time. Get feedback. Go to other people you trust. Might be a brother, sister, co-worker, parent, I don't know, whoever you trust, but think about, especially when it comes to realistic expectations. Are your expectations realistic? I have a good friend of mine who is a therapist, and every time I have an issue, I would call her and I say, I want you to tell me as it is. Don't sugarcoat it, just give it to me as it is. And she doesn't fail to do that. But to me, I've set that expectation with her. I want to hear where I'm going wrong. I want to hear what I'm not doing that is not okay. So by going to her, I keep myself in check. It has been really good to have somebody who can call me out on things that I don't do well, or when I'm harsh with others. It has been really good to have somebody to check with. be patient with you, because eventually you're going to get it, and you are going to improve what things have not really been met for you. So learning from every single opportunity, even though the expectations might not have been met, just learn from them and manage your mindset. If you are going to be the victim, my expectations never get met, then your expectations are not going to ever get met. But if you are going to be if you have this solution focused mentality, what could we do differently? What could I do differently? What could my partner do differently? And then you are going to be in a much better place to take the actions for the next time and to do the next right thing, so to speak. Okay. I'd like to leave a couple of minutes for any questions you might have, or any other thing that I did not cover in here. We have only 1 hour, and you could have 5-6 hours just talking about expectations. But any ideas from anybody else? What interventions have you found helpful? What have you found that works in your own relationships? How do you manage your own expectations? Would you be willing to do a part 2 of this presentation? I would. I need a little bit more ideas. I can expand this more, or if you have other ideas about what you'd like to hear, yes, I'd be willing to do that. This is a fun topic. We can probably explore some of the cultural differences or some of the male and female differences. So give us some ideas about what would you like to see happening, so we can start working on that. I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, part 2 would be awesome. I guess we'll work on part 2. My mother always told me not to expect things and then they're going too fast. You know what? I was raised with expect a lot from yourself. I had, especially from my father, I find myself being very much like my father. But to me, it has been having higher expectations for myself has helped me progress, because I knew where I was going to go. I created that expectation and I worked toward that. So that might be something to consider. For me, it's really a lot of expectations for me come from my family of origin, how I grew up. My parents we did not really have goals per se, but they had high expectations for us. And I remember even as a teenager, I did not dare to disappoint my father. The expectation that he had was very high for me, and I performed to that expectation or to exceed that expectation, which is quite in line with what the research is saying. The higher expectations, the better we perform, the more satisfied we are in a relationship. So I think that will be something to consider. We've got to teach couples and families and children how to have high expectations for themselves, because they perform better. Adult child versus parent expectations. Okay. These are good ideas. My mother always told me to accept things and then I would not be disappointed. Yes, part 2 would be great. Yep. My husband always asks, what do you do? What hat do you want me to wear? When we have a conversation, it is helpful for oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. What hat do you want me to wear? What do you want me to do for you? That is a great way to meet that expectation. It is helpful for him and me. He knows what to say and I get my needs met. I love that. I think you should be doing our part 2, Becca. These are excellent. Okay, great ideas, you guys. Well, we can probably, I guess we will work on that part 2 then. Communication is agreed. We should expect much more from ourselves. Excellent. Okay, great ideas, guys. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. I wish this was more, that all of us could be in the same room so you could actually share a little bit more, but this is a great format as well. We can reach a lot of people, so that's wonderful.
Thank you, Bielsa. Yeah, so anyone who is wanting CE credit, I dropped a link to the evaluation in the chat. I also dropped the class code in there. I'm giving you my email as well in case you run into any issues and you need to contact me. If you need me to email it to a personal email, that's fine. I can do that. Just let me know. Shoot me an email and I will include the link to the evaluation and the code if you need that. And then I also dropped in a link to our YouTube channel. And maybe check back a little later this week or the beginning of next week. I should have this class uploaded if you want to review that. That would be awesome.
And I'm taking some of your notes, you guys, so we can address those into our next part 2 presentation.
Great. Any other questions for Bielsa before we let her go? All right, so lately I have an assistant who is helping me to send out these certificates and the slides. So watch for an email probably a little later this week or maybe the beginning of next week. Serena has been helping me with those and she's been very gracious to help with that. I know it's a lot of work sometimes, but she's doing a great job. But if for any reason, somehow we've overlooked you, maybe we owe you a certificate from last week or 2 weeks ago, or any other class that maybe you're like, hey, I never got the certificate for this, please reach out to me. I'm very happy to go back and look over our records. And if you need a certificate, I'm happy to send that to you. All right. So please don't hesitate to contact me. All right. Well, thank you again, Bielsa, for your time. This has been a great presentation, and we look forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Joseph. And thank you, everyone, for coming.